All right, I'm going live now on Facebook and YouTube. All right, we're live. We're doing it. Is there any more feedback? Have people commented? All right. Well, for those of you we're going to get going. For those of you that joined us, thank you so much. This is a new project that we were hoping to get started. For IG folks, I'm going to be focusing on this camera because if I try to do both, I don't have that Don Lemon skill of being in a studio and knowing which cameras to focus on. So I'm going to try to focus here, but I'll have to periodically check IG just for people in the comments. Trishanda and I were law school classmates. Sad to think it's been almost a decade. So almost a decade ago. And we had fun political arguments. That's always been kind of, I was a poli-sci major, and that's just something that's always been a passion of mine. And we recently been discussing, obviously, who Biden should pick, and it leads to other conversations. And these conversations we've been sharing for the past, like we said, almost 7-8 years. So we think, you know what? Why don't we bring this to the masses? But for those of you who don't know, I'm Cliff Mason II, and I teach. I was a poli-sci major, and there's some other fun stuff that you guys can find out later.
Well, thank you, Cliff, for allowing me to do these conversations with you. Like Cliff said, we've known each other for a while. I mean, Cliff is almost trying to age us, saying a decade ago. Doesn't seem like that long ago, but yeah. Cliff and I, we've known each other since law school. I've done a lot of work with Cliff, talking about different political issues. Cliff has the Mason Report, where I've written a few articles there, just talking about the political process, mainly the election process. And Cliff has always been someone that wants to make sure other people stay informed throughout, not just during the election season, but outside of that. He does a great job at covering Black History Month. So you guys definitely need to check him out. And he's someone that you can always go to if you have questions or just want to learn more. So I'm looking forward to tonight's conversation.
All right. So we're going to pretty much try to knock this 3 segments out in an hour. We'll see if that's possible. We're going to cut it at 5:30 Pacific and 8:30 on the East Coast. So we're going to cut it at 5:30. Hopefully we can keep to that and be done. But the 3 segments we're going to focus on are Biden's VP shortlist, gun control, and whether or not Biden should debate. And this came up just recently because of a New York Times op-ed. Somebody floated the idea that Biden shouldn't debate Donald Trump. So we're going to discuss that. But let's start off with this first question. I think it only makes sense considering, Shonda, you worked on Capitol Hill with the Democratic Party. So in full disclosure for folks wondering, like, partisan affiliation. But I'm curious, who is your, and I have a 2-part question, and people are going to be like, wait, wouldn't that elicit the same answer? To me, the answer, it has 2 different answers. But my 2 questions for you are, who is your top pick for Biden to be a running mate? And who do you think is the best pick for Biden to be his running mate?
Okay, who is my top pick?
Yeah, if you were picking.
If I was picking, my top pick would definitely be Stacey Abrams. And I'll throw out my wild card in a little bit, but my top pick is Stacey Abrams.
Is that different from who you think the best pick is?
No, it's not.
Oh, to you, that's the same person.
Yes, so I would stick with the same person.
Okay. Why do you think she's the best?
So for those who are unfamiliar with what happened in the previous election, or not the previous election, but in 2018, Stacey Abrams actually won when she ran for governor of Georgia. The echoing still. So Stacey Abrams, she won the election in Georgia. However, due to a few different things, but the current governor, Brian Kemp, who you now have, who is not doing the best, hasn't been doing the best, is not for the people. He is in that position just due to different tactics that they impose, such as voter suppression and rigging the election. But Stacey Abrams, she's a Black woman. She's educated, knows her stuff. She speaks very well. She has the ability to mobilize the entire party. Young voters came out in large numbers to vote, to actually vote. They participated in the election process. And I think that that's very important and something that we haven't seen in a long time. We saw that the numbers actually went down in 2016. And I believe that Biden, he really needs to energize the party. And unfortunately, we don't want to see young voters decide to stay home, because that's what we saw happen in 2016. Her above other candidates, and it gets interesting, right? Because you have Kamala Harris, who I really love. So when Cliff said, who's your best pick and who do you think is, what was the second part?
Who's your top pick versus who do you think is the best
top
pick?
Right, top pick and best pick. So I love Kamala. However, I think that she might be able to serve in a better role for the administration. And I'll leave it at that. I'll let Cliff go.
So we somewhat share a pick, because I don't agree with you that she's the best pick, I think, for Biden. I think Stacey Abrams is the best pick for Biden. She's not my favorite pick. Like, if I had my druthers, Kamala Harris would be one at the top of the ticket. We'd be trying to figure out, is it going to be Julian Castro or Buttigieg, or who's going to be her running mate? But since the vote is what it is at this point, my top pick is Kamala Harris. I mean, to me, she's young, not the youngest, because Abrams does have her by almost a decade, so that's important. Because, so like, first let me break down my criteria. Youth matters, right?
Yes, it does.
Youth matters, because we have to think about, let's imagine by some miracle, Biden wins. Yes, I think it'd be a miracle if he wins, for those of you that are surprised. Biden wins, and he wins re-election. So we're talking about a person who's going to be young enough to carry the party for the next 8 to 12 years. Is that somebody currently in their 70s, Elizabeth Warren? Currently in their mid-60s? Like, I don't think so. So I think he has to think about, what'd you say?
I said Rep. Karen Bass. Just
I think Karen Bass is 66, right? Karen Bass is 66?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Like,
that can fact check us too if you'd like.
He has to think about who's going to be able to carry the party. Now, beyond that, who's beyond youth, right? I also think before he even said, I'm going to pick a woman, we knew it needed to be a woman. It's time. Like, it's long past time that we see that it's time for a woman to be in that position, to lead the Senate, right? To lead the most important, deliberative, legislative body. And so while my dream ticket was Kamala Harris, Julian Castro, I think if we're being practical politically, and tell me if I'm missing any comments or questions from IG, if we're being practical and political, Stacey Abrams, to me, is his only shot of winning, because Trump cannot win without sweeping the South, right? So a Democrat can win without winning Pennsylvania or without winning Michigan. A Republican cannot win without sweeping the South. Stacey Abrams puts Georgia in play. I mean, she was a few percentage points from beating Brian Kemp, who was the sitting Secretary of State, who cheated and purged thousands of votes off the rolls, right? So, one, she puts Georgia in play. Two, even if they don't carry Georgia in the general election, by having Stacey Abrams on the ticket, it forces the Republicans to devote money to Georgia. So they'll have to devote resources and time. So time, energy, and resources to Georgia that they would otherwise be utilizing in Michigan, be utilizing in Wisconsin, be utilizing in Pennsylvania. So now it stretches the party a little bit thinner on the other side. You don't put any pressure on the Republican side if you go with Karen Bass. You don't put any pressure on them if you go with, well, I'll get to Elizabeth Warren and Amy Klobuchar, because to me, those are non-starters. If he puts one of those two on the ballot, we're going to see a worse voter turnout for the Democratic Party in Michigan and Wisconsin and in the Rust Belt than we saw 4 years ago. I mean, he can do more damage to the Democratic Party by putting not just a white woman on the ticket, but just a mediocre, unliked white woman on the ticket. I mean, Democrats voted and they rejected her soundly. Like, Elizabeth Warren was demolished in her own state. Why is she even, this is my question to you, why is Elizabeth Warren being more highly considered than Susan Rice or Kamala Harris or Stacey Abrams?
You know the answer to that.
Well, I think it goes beyond race. I think
so. Yeah, but I would say one of the reasons why she's being considered is because white women feel comfortable seeing another white woman on the ticket. We can't ignore what happened in 2016. I do think that there are a lot of people that align with Warren's platform. She ran a really great campaign. I will not take that from her, but we do still have to consider that white females are a base that will they vote for Trump this time around? If they see a black woman on the ticket, will they not? Yes, what?
Who vote for Trump this time around?
So is that a base then that we just leave behind? Do you not consider them when you're also considering young voters? Because we still have to think about the future of the party.
Young voters is the reason I thought it was insulting. Like, if you read the New York Times article and they say Biden's surrogates are pushing because the Congressional Black Caucus, which Karen Bass was the head of, the Congressional Black Caucus backs Karen Bass as his vice presidential running mate because she's going to be more acquiescent. Is that what we're looking for? Like, I'm sorry. If we look at the increase in voter registration, right? Like, I get to work with teenagers. I've seen how energized they are. You name one teenager that's going to be energized about Karen Bass. Name one. I know a
if they even know who she is,
voter that's like, ooh, Karen Bass for vice president. Let's go. That's nobody.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I have a curveball for you. So Tammy Duckworth is also on that list. And for folks who are curious, I'm referencing, there was a New York Times article posted on August 1st that listed, because his surrogates are trying to be slick and they're dropping names here and there. And of the names, they've indicated to the New York Times which potential VP running mates have actually been asked or have been requested to submit vetting documents. And of those folks, Tammy Duckworth is on that list. So to me, if he picks Tammy Duckworth, he's clearly just pandering to folks who have an affinity for the military. But the problem with that is we've already seen that voters in this country don't care so much about military service the way they did 60, 70 years ago. So do you think there's something more to Tammy Duckworth that I'm missing? Like, do you think she's a great potential running mate, or do you think he's pandering to like military families?
I definitely think that one of that would help. That's helping like a certain base, but the issues are larger than military. This is not 2004 re-election. I don't understand why you would run with someone who does. The problem is right now, I'm not sure if you have brought it up yet, is that we don't have the time and the resources to spend an entire 3 months introducing this candidate to the world. A lot of people do not know who Tammy Duckworth is unless you are someone who is real, like you're reading, you're really engaged with politics. So I don't think that would be the smartest decision to pick someone like her.
Yeah.
Is she a likable candidate? Yes. I don't know anything negative. I don't know anything negative to say about her in terms of character or the work that she's done. But again, is she somebody that will help mobilize the party, energize the party? Because we do need that. We need that. I will be frank. A lot of people are not excited about Biden. And I know people get upset when they hear other people say, oh, I wasn't excited. I don't really want to vote because I don't like the candidate. We need to give people a reason to get excited.
Yeah.
And like you said, Cliff, people need to start thinking outside of one election cycle, because we're here to win 2 election cycles and go beyond that. So again, when we're saying that we need a candidate that can last 12 years, that's because we have Barack Obama, who still is out here stomping for other Democrats. He's out here campaigning for them, and you need that in a president. Joe Biden probably will not be able to do that after his second election, like second cycle, just being honest.
And you're being nice. I don't think he'd live out his first term, but that's another conversation for another day.
Yeah, we're not going to speak that energy. We're not going to put that energy out here, Cliff.
He's 11 years old. I'm sorry. What's going to happen if Biden picks a white woman? Because people just to be clear, because the media has twisted, because you and I talked about this the other day, the media's twisted the line that he said, because he was asked directly, like Biden was asked directly, are you going to pick a woman of color? And what's his response? My cabinet is going to look like America. I'm sorry, I'm from Santa Ana, California, best city in the world.
Oh God!
So is he saying his cabinet is going to look like Santa Ana? I mean, is his cabinet going to look like Coeur d'Alene, Idaho? That's in America. Is his cabinet going to look like Santa Fe, New Mexico? Is it going to look like West Virginia? What does that mean? Like, are you going to pick a woman of color? Question mark. Answer that question. Like, he tries to make himself out. He's a man of the people. He's a politician. He's been a politician longer than both of us have been alive. And that answer is, that's how you play the game. I wish he would just answer questions, because I want to know, because then we wouldn't have this foolish list of all these non-viable candidates.
Right.
Which are Elizabeth.
Yeah, 13 candidates that's ridiculous. And then leaving off my girl Stacey, that's another story. But
to me, it's
I will say, but I agree. I think it's time to just start answering questions directly, because that's part of the reason why you then leave other people out of the process. Like, a lot of people don't want to engage with politics because they find politicians untruthful. They're not really speaking from a place where they actually, like, people don't feel like they have the right intentions behind what it is that they're stating to the public. I'm reading some of the comments. Now, in terms of that particular comment that he made and how the media ran with it, part of the problem that's part of the reason why we have Trump now, I'd say, is because I'm not placing everything on the media, but we have to stop doing that.
Erica said he made a general popular statement. Yeah, I agree. I think the statement is popular, but the problem is we don't forget your popularity. We want direct answers, right? Like, if I go to the doctor, I don't want a popular statement. What's wrong with me, right? Like, same principle should apply.
But that comment too, saying the party will look. Read the comment back, because I don't want to do the same thing that the media is doing.
Just saying that Biden made a general popular statement.
Right, and stating that it will look like the rest of America. The point is that everyone's not like Cliff and I, who live in bigger cities that are very diverse racially, culturally. So you can't continue to make blanket statements like that, because it's the same reason why we've had over 400 years of systemic racism.
Yeah.
Saying that you don't see color, that doesn't solve anything. So we need to get away from generalizations like that.
Quick timeout. For folks commenting on IG, unfortunately, these two systems are not connected. So don't at me at StreamYard. But if you want your comment, like for me to to put the comment up on the screen, you have to comment on either Facebook or YouTube. Sorry, that's not me. All right. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, it's okay. So let's read a comment on here on Instagram, or read a question. So Seth said, can the Democratic Party afford to take risk on this election in order to game plan and preserve positions and placement for the future?
What do they? So the person who asked that question, are you saying that it would be a risk to pick? What is the risk? I guess is my question. Do you understand that further? What's the risk? Are they saying it's a risk to take Abrams? Because you and I are in agreement that Stacey Abrams should be the pick.
Mm-hmm.
Are they saying that it would be a risk to pick her versus to pick one of these mediocre white women?
Can you confirm that, Seth? Let me see if there's another question.
Well, while we're waiting there, I'm gonna drop another bomb on folks.
All right.
I never thought it was a good idea for Biden to say, I'm going to pick a woman, because when you pigeonhole yourself like that, when you put yourself into that type of a commitment, now you're really restricting yourself from really viable options. So that means, because for me, it's 3 candidates or bust. It's either Kamala, Abrams, or Susan Rice. If he picks anyone other than those 3, he should go with Julian Castro or Pete Buttigieg, right? Like, I think Julian Castro and Pete Buttigieg are infinitely better options than the other women on down that list. Better than Amy Klobuchar, better than all of them on that list. So to me, it was never a good idea for him to say, I'm going to pick a woman for sure. I want there to be a woman. I just think it should be a woman that's going to help the party for years to come, and a woman that people can get excited about. I don't see millennials getting excited about some of these older women. And Klobuchar's actually not that old. Klobuchar's only 60.
No, she's not.
She would be, 74 or 72 running on her own?
Okay, but
what?
Again, no, it's also like, she's a boring candidate. What does she do for the party?
What does she do for the party?
In terms of like
legislator.
Yes, but now she definitely would help with Middle America.
Yeah, I think she's a great legislator. She's been the most productive member of the Senate, I think, for the past 12 to 16 years, 12 years, something like that. So I think she is important to the party, but I don't think she needs to be. I don't think she needs to be the nominee to be vice president. Grace said, "Same."
And I agree
because they're good, not because they're a woman. Yeah, exactly. You see the good. Let me put this up.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with this. Yeah, pick a woman because they're good, not because they're a woman. Yeah, and again, this is to me. This is more of this was pandering. Like, don't pander to voters. Voters are too smart. Voters are smart. Like, you have to stop insulting our intelligence. We all recognize it's high time for a woman to be in the highest positions in this country. They should be leading schools. They should be leading corporations. They should be leading hospitals. They should be leading in state and local government. They should be leading in federal government. Looting is really bad.
The problem is, but the fact that we even have to run this big campaign right now just for a woman, a Black woman, to be considered, that's the problem. It should not have taken for it should not have taken for this moment. And I'm not saying like just because of what happened with the killing of George Floyd, we should have been talking about electing a Black woman, a woman of color before this. And so I think what's happening now is that some people feel that some people are going to argue, oh, he only picked a woman of color or a Black woman because of what's happened the last 3 months. And it's unfair. And so I don't know. So I see what Grace is saying, but I don't like arguments like this because it almost makes it seem as if you're trying to use the affirmative action thing in terms of hire them because they have the skills, or like they have the skills. Well, we know if this person is being considered, they definitely have the skills. I mean, you guys put Donald Trump in office. So I'm not going to tear apart these women who definitely have shown that they have the capabilities to perform and legislate well. Also, I don't know if people understand like the significance of why we're having the conversation about the vice president role. Cliff has mentioned a few things in terms of what we need to see happen in the next 8 to 12 years, but this is also the person who will work closely with the Senate and the House. So you need someone who is actually going to have the president's back. They're going to push for these legislative goals that the administration has set. All of those things matter. So we don't need someone who is not willing to stand up for all of us, and is also going to challenge the president at times as well.
Yes. There's not even enough time for that because we were about to transition, but yeah. That was what I found to be the most racially charged element of Biden's surrogates saying that the reason they're averse to a Kamala Harris nomination is because she won't be a rubber stamp to Biden's agenda. And to me, Joe Biden wasn't a rubber stamp to Obama's agenda, but that's what made them grow stronger. I mean, those two have an inseparable special bond now. We can all see it in video and photography. And it's because I think they challenged each other intellectually. The idea that Biden is going to go with a woman, but a woman that's going to just be complacent with being his running mate and not push him and not challenge him, to me, again, it's not just insulting, but it's not going to make us better. We talk about trying to perfect our union. How is it perfecting our union if the person at the top of the ticket is looking for the person that's just going to rubber stamp all of their policies as opposed to challenging their ideas? Because challenging ideas, and this is what you and I do, you don't agree with half the stuff that I say, but us going back and forth allows us to sharpen the tools that we have at our have that in our access. But I don't see anyone besides these three. So this is my last question before we transition. Mm-hmm. You're advising Biden, and he says he'll pick whoever you tell him, with one exception. It can't be Harris, it can't be Abrams, it can't be Susan Rice, but it has to be a woman. He says he will pick whoever you put on his desk, so long as it's not those three, not Stacey Abrams, not Kamala Harris, not Susan Rice. Because we agree those three, unless you had a different top three, because that was my top three for the party. And if people are curious, I think Susan Rice's international experience, being a former ambassador to the United Nations, being a former national security advisor, I think she'd be an excellent pick. She's just not my favorite pick, but I think she'd be an excellent pick. So if not those three, who would you advise Biden pick as his running mate?
Wow. So I told you I had a wild card. Mine would be Val Demings from Florida.
Okay, why?
So I mean, if he's not going to pick those three who have name recognition, who've they've proven themselves, I think, in more ways than others, I say then take a chance. Val Deming, she's respected in the House. She has previous law enforcement training. I believe she was the chief of a police department.
Yeah, in Orlando for like 10 years.
Yeah, and she's fairly young, and she's very energized. So I would say that because she also has great working relationships on the Hill, I think she's worth considering.
So I appreciate you.
And you only gave me a little bit of time. I just want to add that in too.
I appreciate you answering the question, but I don't think she's a good pick because she doesn't help put Florida in play. Florida is going red regardless of what happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Florida's going to go red. So to me, it doesn't make sense to put a Florida politician on the ticket when they're not going to put their own state in play. Like that was the thing that Tim Kaine brought to Hillary. He at least ensured that she was going to carry Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
But Val Deming doesn't put Florida in play for him. And what she would do is having her on the ticket now politicizes this Blue Lives Matter, right? Like response to the current movement of racial justice. And I don't think that that's going to be in the Dems' best favor to have that constantly be asked at every time that she's put in public. So I think she'd be a dangerous pick. I would prefer anybody besides her. I'd put the veteran on, put Tammy Duckworth on the ticket, but not Val Deming. But I appreciate you answering. I didn't even think, I thought about the question, but I actually didn't think of an answer myself. But we're going to move on.
Wow. You guys we'll have a sidebar on that one later.
Oh, real quick. Sorry. So, Kieran said that the pick should for sure be Tulsi Gabbard. And I don't know if
I saw that too.
If she's trolling me or if she really thinks it should be Tulsi, but she's pretty much hated by the party for very good reason. She would be a miserable pick, and I don't think I would vote for that. Those two. That's just me.
And not voting it should not be an option. But next question, Cliff. She said, "Duh, I'm trolling."
Is it time to abolish gun control?
Well, Cliff, let's hear from you on that. What were you doing today?
That's unimportant. So
yes, it is important. It is important.
What was I doing today?
Why don't we talk about what we did today?
What? Why do you want to start with that? I was finishing some background check documents for a new gun purchase.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't answer the question. Should gun control laws be abolished? What do you say?
The way that they currently stand, I do think that each state should go back and look. I believe that in this upcoming election year, so after this election cycle, I do think that states need to take a look at their gun laws, and they need to, at the state level. Some states are already doing a great job at this, but I do think that if you can implement something in your state and show that it's effective, then that will only help laws be passed on the federal level. We cannot continue to wait around for we can't continue to wait around for gun control reform on the federal level.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for over 20 years, they've been demanding that they're able to look in, they're able to research. They're able to obtain the research from certain agencies, from the NRA, and I haven't seen that move at all. Unfortunately, with a lot of the mass shootings that we've had in schools, in workplaces, we still haven't seen anything in the last 10 years. So why it would be wise to wait on gun control on a federal level, I'm not sure. And so that is where I then put that in the hands of us, concerned citizens, and I say that you need to be pushing for local reform.
So to answer the question,
hold on, Cliff. And I'm not saying that there shouldn't be anything I'm not saying that I'm against something happening federally. I just want people to understand that it takes a long time for us to see things happen on a federal level. So we need to stop putting so much of our time and energy in things happening on the in Congress. That's all, right? Because I'm looking at some of the comments. But go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, so I want to give some context for this question because due to the pandemic, we've seen some different numbers. Gun sales in the country have surged since the coronavirus pandemic. More than 3.63 million firearm background checks were carried out in July alone. And the FBI completed its highest number of firearm background checks just 1 month prior in June with 3.93 million. Remember, this is a background check per purchased firearm. In that past, the previous record set in March of 2020 with 3.74 million background checks. So from March to July of this year, the FBI completed 17.3 million background checks. That's a lot of gun purchases. And 80% of those gun purchases from March to July are new gun owners. So now we can get into that later on. But to answer the question, the short answer is, should we abolish gun control laws? Yes. But the long answer is, of course not. Of course we shouldn't abolish them. This isn't, and I love to advocate for just clear black and white answers, but this is one that's truly as gray as they can be, because as a gun owner, and I wouldn't call myself an enthusiast, but I enjoy going to the range, and hopefully I can get good enough one day to compete. Like, I think it should be treated like any other sport, but also I recognize the importance of regulation. So I wrote down a couple regulations that I support, and one that's currently not required, but should be added. So the
before you go into that, someone asked, Seth said, do you think the increase in purchases are due to 2020 apocalypse hysteria?
Say it again.
He said, do you think the increase in purchases are due to 2020 apocalypse hysteria?
For sure. Yeah, I think the increase, so we can get into that right now. I think the increase is related to the pandemic. I think people remember, you couldn't find toilet paper a few months ago. You couldn't find toilet paper. So I think people in their panic, what's people's first instinct? Like, go back to Thomas Hobbes' Leviathan, right? Like, we are human beings, and in our state of nature, what are we going to do? Preserve self, right? Self-preservation. So I think people's instincts were, what am I going to do to keep myself and my family safe? I need to make sure that I'm armed in case worst case scenario happens. It made it terrible for gun owners who already were enthusiasts before, because now you can't find ammo, your favorite guns are all sold out. But yeah, for sure, to answer that person's question, I think that's a legitimate question. I think that's related. The gun sale increase, the 17 million over the pandemic, is related to COVID. But so I'm a fan of the 10-day waiting period. Yeah, it's inconvenient that you make a purchase. Essentially, you're paying for something that you can't access right away. But at the end of the day, if somebody is going out to make a purchase with ill intent because of some type of emotional distress, that 10-day waiting period for them could be crucial. And people are going to say, well, the numbers are dramatically on the other side. But if there's even one case, to me, that it's going to stop somebody from otherwise doing something that could be harmful, I'm fine with it. Universal background checks, I don't know a single gun owner that's anti-background checks, because I think most of us agree if you've committed certain crimes, if you've been in certain violations, you're probably not safe. Like, if you're a domestic abuser, if you've shown yourself to be violent, adding a weapon, right, to that scenario is not going to improve the situation. So I've got no problem with background checks. Another one that's currently not required that I think should be added, which a lot of my gun enthusiast friends are not going to like, I think there should be a mental battery assessment. I think folks should have to be assessed by some type of professional clinician. Because again, the majority, when people talk about implementing gun regulations, they always sensationalize Chicago or sensationalize Detroit. A lot of people are killed because they had access to a gun in their home and they kill themselves. Or sometimes it's kids because you have negligent adults who aren't putting them in places that keep them safe. So to me, the mental battery assessment would ensure that somebody who is struggling, not only they could get help, but they would keep themselves safe. Like, I'm not a fan of seatbelt laws, but at the end of the day, I recognize the government's trying to ensure that I'm safe enough with the belt on that I can go home to my family. To me, the mental battery assessment would accomplish the same thing. It would make sure that I'm safe enough to operate this weapon. I know we use it as like for sport, but it is a weapon where I can do some serious harm. That's why the first thing you learn is firearm safety. Even whenever you go into a gun shop, they hand you a gun, they clear the magazine and they rack the slide. And you do it again yourself, because your firearm safety is the first thing you learn when you make a purchase or when you're just trying to understand guns. And the problem is, and I think I'm a good person to talk about this because I consider myself fairly progressive, but I also understand the importance of being able to own a firearm. Now, does that mean I think there should be no laws? No, that's why I said abolish all gun control laws. It was kind of a sexy title. Of course, I don't think we should abolish all gun control laws. I just think the law should make more sense, because there are some foolish gun regulations that are nonsensical.
And what do you say then to the number of guns that people are allowed to purchase at one time, within a span of time, I might add?
So this is one of those arbitrary laws. This is one of those I'm going to talk fast. I say we're getting close to time. This is one of those arbitrary laws to me. If I wanted to go out right now and buy 3 AKs, I could. Well, I couldn't because they're sold out everywhere. But if they were available, I could go buy 3 AKs right now. But if I wanted to go buy 3 Beretta M9s, I couldn't, because they treat long guns, which would be a shotgun, rifle type, like AR, long guns are treated differently than handguns. What? That makes no sense to me. I can go buy 3 long guns today, but not 3 handguns today. To me, that's an arbitrary restriction that clearly was made with good intent, but in practice, like, if we're worried about the destruction that the weapon can cost, why treat them differently? That's the question. So if you're asking like about capacity, another capacity, to me, the magazine restriction is another arbitrary, dumb law, because all it's going to do is make your range experience different. I mean, right? Because you could just go one state over and shoot in the range in Nevada and Arizona, and I can have a magazine 30, 50 rounds if I want to. California, I have to go to the manufacturer to special order a 10-round magazine, because most now semi-automatic handguns come double stacked. So you could fit 15, 16, 17 rounds in a magazine. That's the standard magazine. You have to special order a 10 round. So that's another arbitrary regulation to me that just doesn't make sense. Which regulation do you think should be added to the books when it comes to guns? And I hope if people have there are comments. Let me see if I can add them. So should there be so Gracie, should there be a limit on how many guns of any kind a person can own?
Right.
That's a good question.
Thank you, Grace. Talk to him, Cliff.
No.
And
should there be a limit on how many guns of any kind?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to focus. No, I'm not going to play a semantics battle. I know what she's asking. And I would say no, because. And the reason I say no because is we don't know why a person has amassed so many. Let's say I go to a gun show in Texas and I see a dealer that's selling firearms there for $300-400 that in California are worth $1,300-1,400. This is a capitalistic country. to me, I should be able to purchase those if I'm in Texas. I should be able to bring them to California, go through an FFL, go through a federal firearm license dealer, and make a transfer through them, right? So go through all the paperwork, but to me, I should be able to do that because commerce, right? I'm a former student, so you read the commerce clause. Like, to me, it's like, okay, California, you want to get your piece of the pie, just tax it. That's what excise taxes are for. Treat it like alcohol or marijuana. Just put an excise tax on it and let us engage in commerce. So I know it's not a popular answer for folks in the gun reg movement, which again, I'm a person who's not just a progressive and a gun owner, but I've lost people to guns. So this means something to me too. But I also realize people have to have these conversations. If I was a lawmaker and there was a proposal on my desk to pass a law that made a restriction like Grace is acknowledging, should there be a limit on how many, I would consider it. So I know I'm saying now because my gut's telling me, well, no, because I'm thinking about my collection. It's like, I don't want to have someone come in and disrupt my ability to expand this collection. So I say no instinctively, but I would consider it because I'm not a person who like shuts off all ideas.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Let's take one last question on this. I'm going to read one. I'll read one from Instagram, and then we have to move on to our last topic, everyone.
Thank you.
Yes. So the last question, it says, I'm not familiar with the gun laws or the process of obtaining one. However, is a person's mental state considered when purchasing a gun?
It's not. And that's why, and that's why I would advocate for a mental battery at the gun purchasers, like right at their expense. I don't think that should be a state incurred cost. I think you want to buy a gun, there's a responsibility associated with that. And I think you should incur the cost of that. That's just me. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, my pages mixed up. All right, last question. Oh gosh. Did I miss any other IG? Because like they're coming in. I wish people like could. I wish like the IG comments would show up here.
I know. People just some people. You want me to read the other question that came in?
Say it again.
You would like me to read another question that came in?
Oh, somebody had one for sure.
Oh, okay. How would one control the loophole of someone buying a gun and giving it to someone else? Wait, let me, before you answer that.
Yeah.
I'm glad that these questions are coming in, because this is another reason why we need to be actively involved on the local level. People are going to get tired of me saying it, but it's so true. Any questions that you have, do not wait around. I'm not saying that you should not pose these questions to your congressional members, but these are questions that you can start asking to your local elected officials. So start showing up to meetings, find out what meetings are being held on city council, and then your state and house representatives as well, and go in groups with other family members, friends, and start going to attend those meetings. But in terms of finding out what the laws are in your own state, it's a simple Google search. Not being petty, just saying it's a simple Google search. And I think that we all need to learn the laws that harbor us in our own states, because they are all different.
Yeah. And
go ahead, Cliff.
No, you're absolutely right. I would say there was one more point that I wanted to talk about, was the Charleston loophole, but you guys look that up if you're interested. The Charleston loophole just allows a person who's in flux with their federal background check, and they have so many days to complete it. But if the feds didn't have sufficient information and they didn't get back to the dealer in time, they could actually sell the gun to the person after that 3 days, and then it could come back afterwards negative. But by that point, they already sold them the gun. And people think, well, that's how often does that happen? What was it, 3 years ago? Where am I? Oh, so in 2018, 4,240 background checks were denied after the 3-day investigation period. And of those 4,200, 3,960, so 3,900 of the 4,200 sold guns in that case. So the Charleston loophole is pretty dangerous. All right, and that's another one that I would work to get rid of. Moving on to, there's a lot here. Okay. All right.
I'll put it in the chat as well. So you're
I thought, should Joe Biden debate Donald Trump? Do you think Biden has an obligation to debate Donald Trump?
Do they not all have an obligation?
No. So I guess my question is, do you think he has a moral or an obligation to the people? He doesn't have a legal obligation to debate. No.
So there's a process that's put in place. Let's start there. The typical process of what we would see outside of COVID is that we would be able to see multiple debates happen between presidential candidates. That's also with incumbent presidents. So just so everyone's aware, because that's why I'm asking. I think that they still should debate. Look, y'all's president continues to show up without a mask in certain places. He thinks that he cannot be touched by COVID. I honestly would like to know, why would he not debate Biden?
So the question.
Areas. Oh no, I'm just saying, like, I mean, I'm definitely not minimizing COVID, but I do think that that they can set up certain parameters for a debate to happen. It's only 2 people that will be on the stage. You might have, I'm not sure how many reporters they would have there as far as coverage, but I definitely think that the American people deserve that right now.
Also, you're thinking that the only reason they wouldn't debate is because of concerns about COVID?
Right. That's what,
No.
The way that the question is being posed, that's what I took it as, is that, are they not still holding debate? Because they're still having a convention.
So the reason the question is asked is because of that New York Times op-ed. The person made the argument that because Trump doesn't play by the rules, it makes the most sense for Biden to refuse to debate him. Because if you're going to debate a person who is completely anti-truth, what Biden is going to be forced to do on stage is continue to correct him and to correct the record. So essentially, the argument is that he'll be fighting a losing battle. And
reporters have to do. I hear that.
Yeah.
But the reporter, that's the job. That's the job of whoever is moderating, and the reporters have had to do that for the last 4 years with him. So I don't think that should be an excuse for him not to show up in debate.
I don't. So
yes,
I listened to the interview. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Cliff. Go ahead.
I listened to the interview of the individual of the, and yes, this is my.
I'm glad you saw that comment.
This is my happiest mug. I think he does have an obligation to the people, and so I see it differently. The writer viewed Biden's burden of continuing to correct Trump and to correct the record as a burden, whereas I see it as an opening. Imagine you and I are on a debate stage with the crowd, and I just allow you to go on tangents, and then afterwards, I devote 45 seconds of my 2 or 3 minute allotted time period to saying, well, they were wrong for this reason. Oh, and she was wrong for this reason. You were also wrong for this. The facts dictate this. Oh, and the facts also dictate this. I don't know why you continue to lie to the people. Maybe you think they're stupid, but they're not, and they see right through you. I think if you had a talented rebut from a candidate, that's why we wanted one of these younger, sharper people at the top of the ticket, because Kamala wouldn't pull any punches with this dude, right? I think Buttigieg wouldn't pull any punches with this dude. Like if we had somebody else at the top, but the problem is Biden's older, he's not as quick on his feet, he's not as witty. So Trump is going to get away with a lot more than he should, just because Biden doesn't have what some of these other folks on the Democratic side have. With that said, he can still be prepared, right? He still was the vice president to a dude who could not be a more masterful debater, right? Harvard Law. So he can consult with former President Barack Obama and say, hey, will you prep me for these debates and showing me how to correct him without, I don't know, without disrupting the flow of the debate too much. So I think he does have an obligation, but I also think he should see it as an advantage. Oh, we're getting close. Has anybody else asked a question in IG that I missed?
Someone says, what about a virtual debate? I think we covered that.
Right. If that's it. So we considered discussing RBG this week, and also Trump's claims regarding the validity of
changing the election date.
The election
validity of mail-in ballots.
So write in the comments. These will be posted everywhere. What you think we should discuss next week. We appreciate everyone that did join us. We know it's a little rough at the start because I've never used IG Live. This is all new for me. So thank you all to join, and for the folks who ask questions, and don't be shy, ask questions in the future. For folks on IG, I'm sorry that I kind of focus on this camera, but like I said, I'm not Don Lemon. I don't have that kind of skill yet to go back and forth, but thank you. Last word.
Thanks, everyone. No, there's no other comments.
There's another comment
that came. There.
All right.
Let's see.
You get the last word.
Has something. Hold on.
Because the majority of his supporters are very ignorant. They don't realize Trump is for the rich, regardless of your race. We'll leave it at that. Yeah, with that comment, Trump has the popular vote of the nation because the majority of his supporters are very ignorant. They don't realize Trump is for the rich, regardless of your race.
And we'll just, leave that there.
Leave that there.
And we hope that everyone tunes in next Tuesday. We'll have new topics that we're discussing. And feel free to message Cliff or myself if you have questions that you would like for us to go over next week.
Thank you.